Vijanavalapa Kiribadhari Yasoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiara Banachari Yamuna Tiara Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Dana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Vallabha Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Pratijana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Pratijana Ranjana Yamuna Tiara Banachari Yamuna Tiara Banachari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th canto, 24th chapter, 68th verse. Is that the correct one? Is it? 68? What? 68, okay. Okay, you ready? We'll start one word at a time. Ata tam asi no brahman paramatmam vipashitam vishvam rudra paya devastam akutashid Baya Gati Atatvam Asim No Brahman Paramatmam Vipashitam Vishvam Rudra Bayadvashtam Akutashted Bayagati Atatvam Asim No Brahman Paramatmam Vipasitam Vishvam Rudra Bayadvashtam Akutashvid Bayagati Atatvam Asim No Brahman Paramatmam Vipashitam Vishvam Rudra Bayadvashtam Akutashvid Bayagati. Please repeat. word for words. Ata, therefore, Tavam, you, my Lord, Asi, are, Na, are, Brahman, O Supreme Brahman, Paramatman, O Super Soul, Vipashitam, for the learned wise men, Vishvam, the whole universe, Rudrabhaya, being afraid of Rudra, Devashtam, annihilated, Akutaschidbhaya, undoubtedly fearless, Gati, destination. Translation, my dear Lord, actually all learned persons know you as a Supreme Brahman and the Super Soul. Although the entire universe is afraid of Lord Rudra, who ultimately annihilates everything, for the learned devotees, you are the fearless destination of all. Repeat, my dear Lord, all actually learned persons know you as the Supreme Brahman and the Super Soul. Although the entire universe is afraid of Lord Rudra, who ultimately annihilates everything. For the learned devotees, you are the fearless destination of all. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. For the purpose of creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this cosmic manifestation, there are three lords, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, Maheshvara. The material body is finished at the time of annihilation. Both the material body and the small universal body and the small unit, the individual living entity's body, are susceptible to annihilation at the ultimate end. However, the devotees do not fear the annihilation of the body, for they are confident that after the annihilation, they will go back home, back to Godhead. Taktva deham punarjanma nayati mam iti so Arjuna. If one strictly follows the process of devotional service, he has no fear of death. Pay attention, because some of these, like that one, is going to be on the test. For he is predestined to go back home, back to Godhead. The non-devotees are fearful of death because they have no guarantee of where they are going or of what type of body they're going to get in their next life. The word Rudrabhaya is significant in this verse because Rudra himself, Lord Shiva, is speaking of fear of Rudra. This indicates that there are many Rudras, 11 Rudras. And the Rudra, Lord Shiva, who was offering this prayer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is different from the other Rudras, although he is as powerful as they are. The conclusion is that one Rudra is afraid of another Rudra because each one of them is engaged in the destruction of the cosmic manifestation. But for the devotee, everyone is afraid of Rudra, even Rudra himself. A devotee is never afraid of Rudra because he is always secure, being protected by the lotus feet of the Lord. As Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 9:31, Kaunteya prajihinati name bhakta pranasati. My dear Arjun, you may declare publicly that my pure devotee will be never vanquished under any circumstances. So what do the learned persons know? What? That's one thing, but what else do they know? What do they know Krishna as? Not the demigod who can grant their favors? No? Do they have demigods that they pray to grant their favors? But that's not Krishna, right? Okay, good. So is the universe afraid of Lord Rudra? Including the devotees? If the universe is afraid, why aren't they? Because they're sure of their destination. People are afraid because the material body is finished at the time of annihilation. The whole universe is finished, and it's finished along with it. In this regard, do you think Krishna should have explained how the body is temporary and that the soul is eternal? You think he should have explained that? No one thinks he should have explained that? Raise your hand if you don't think he should have explained that. That means you do think he should have explained that, right? He did, particularly in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Many people belong to a supposedly spiritual tradition, but if you don't know what is spirit, then how are you going to function as a spirit soul? You have to know. It means to know what is matter, what is spirit, and who is the controller of both. So Arjuna is taught by Krishna the Sankhya philosophy. And in the beginning, he says that things like the non-permanent appearance of the material body is like the non-permanent appearance of summer and winter seasons. They come and they go, and a person should not be. As a sober person, dearest tatvanamuyati, a sober person will not be bewildered by such change. Just like we take off old clothes and put on new clothes, or does someone wear the same clothes all month? Some people wear the same coat all month. Yeah, if they're a dog or a wolf, or birds wear the same feathers, but they jump in the moat and wash them, yes? But they take off the old clothes and change them for other clothes. And we have the changing body exhibit, that the person goes from babyhood to boyhood to childhood to youth to middle age to old age, and then he transfers to another body. So Krishna explains in many ways how the body is temporary. He explains, what is it, in the 16th verse of the second chapter, he talks about how of the non-existent there is no endurance, meaning the material world, it doesn't endure. That's why it's called non-existent. It is there, but it does not exist eternally in that form. And of the eternal, there is no cessation, meaning the material world cannot last, but the spiritual world has no cessation. And he says that the Tattva is those who have seen the truth are not bewildered. This Tattva is an important point. By being a Tattva, you see what is the truth about the body and the soul. And later Krishna says, Tatvidi pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam gnanivas tattva darshanaha. Where does he say that? Srimad Bhagavatam? It's in the Gita. In which chapter? I'll give you, is in the 2nd, the 4th, and the 9th chapter. It might be the 34th verse of the 4th chapter, where Krishna is explaining this, that you approach as self-realized soul, because the self-realized soul is somebody who's seen it. Somebody else is just speculating, guessing, or passing on information about it. The big difference than someone who's actually experienced the absolute truth. This is why we were convinced by Prabhupada, because he wasn't talking about an obscure idea. He was talking about Krishna, someone he had experienced and who he had the highest kind of love for. So because of that, it became very real. Things we haven't experienced don't become real. People didn't talk about cell phones a few hundred years ago. In the ancient Inca times, they talked about how the Inca king, if someone had never seen a cell phone and you see someone talking in it, what would you say? You know, right? What is it? It's a mirror. To someone who has never seen one, wouldn't that be a mirror? They said that person was talking to someone inside of a mirror. That's exactly what it would be. They have to use terms that they understand. And so, the same way, if you hadn't experienced this, you wouldn't believe it. Now people pick it up and make calls. If someone tried to sell you one before they came out, you would think you were being cheated. And hundreds of years ago, they would think you were a witch and burn you at the stake for having such a sorcery that you can talk to people inside of a mirror. It must be a witch. Does that mean they're a witch? No. It just means they're using technology. So, this is what the Sankhya is about, understanding what's the difference between the body and the soul. If you think you're your car, someone hits it. You say, you hit me. Look what damage you did to me. But if you know you're separate from the car, you don't feel it. But so many people are attached to their car. If they got a new car and something was damaged in it, they would be upset, right? Unless they're a devotee and they know the difference. I had my son's new. It's a big vehicle to haul the children. And it's very tricky because I went out to it and I locked the door and then I went to the other side. It's unlocked. Because if you get close to it, the key automatically locks it. So I go around trying to lock it and that couldn't work. In the meantime, it rolls backwards and hits a wall and puts a dent in it. And when I showed it to him, he says, it's okay, it's just a material object. Is this the way Hell's Angels feel about their motorcycles? If you hit it, would you say, it's okay, it's just a material object? Or would you be in big trouble? They call those the 1%ers. Those are the motorcycle gang that causes big problems. You know, in America, you have the motorcycle gangs that kill people, and you have the mafia, and there's 500 million guns for 350 million people. Over 200 times a year, people go to a school and kill a bunch of children, and still the murder rate in South Africa is 10 times what it is in America. Even after all the things that go on, the murder rate is 10 times here what it is there. I guess it's not that safe here, right? So, we're not afraid when we know that the body is temporary. In the purport here, it says, Taktva deha punarjanma nayati mam eti so Arjuna. Where does that come from? And what's the rest of that verse? Taktva deha punarjanma nayati mam eti so Arjuna. Who comes from? What is it? From the scripture? The where? Bhagavad Gita. Okay, we've narrowed it down. What chapter? What verse? Can someone guess? Where is it? What does Krishna say before that? No one knows? We'll see how many hints it takes to get it. It's in the Gita. And he's saying here, Taktva deha punarjanma nayati mam eti so Arjuna. Where is that verse? says they are confident they will go back home, back to Godhead. That's 3 hints. Who knows what this verse begins with? Janma. Now someone knows? Janma karma. Now what is it? No one knows this one? Janma karma cha me divyam. Evam yo veti takvataha takvadeho punarjanma naiti mam eti so Arjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance in this material world does not, upon leaving his body, take birth again in the material world, but returns to my spiritual abode. We were talking about, this is the 9th verse of the 4th chapter. In the 34th verse, Krishna said, Tat vidi panipratena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te gyanam gyananivas tat vidarshanaha. To approach a self-realized spiritual master. Which is true, but someone could say, you know what, I went to the forest, I devised my own meditation, and I became a Vidarshan. I see God. So Krishna clarifies this in this chapter before that. He talks about how in the beginning of creation, I imparted this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivishvan. Vivishvan imparted it to Manu, and Manu imparted it to his son Ikshvaku. I talked to my son Ikshvaku today because it's still Christmas in America, but I'm not Manu. But, and he's not the Ikshvaku that Manu imparted this knowledge to. This was maybe 40 million years ago or so. Anybody remember back 40 million years ago? That means it didn't happen. Anybody here remember 100 years ago? That means it didn't happen either, right? Because if you can't remember it and you can't see it, it's not real and it didn't happen. Those both statements are false. So then Krishna says that Evam parampara praptamimam rajarishi vidu, that this knowledge was imparted in disciplic succession. So it's important to get this knowledge from someone who sees God, but they also have to come in disciplic succession, where the guru passes, just like Krishna imparted it to Brahma. Where is this mentioned? Somewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam? Right in the beginning, Krishna says, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadasaja Anurad Itaratascha Artesu Avignasvarat Tene Brahma Ridaye Adikavaye. This knowledge was imparted into the heart of Brahma, the original Kavi or poet. Does that mean he must have understood it well? The knowledge was imparted into his heart, and they say 4 heads are better than 1, so he must really understand it. It's funny, somebody says, well, how could Brahma be born connected to a stem? Do you know anyone who was born connected to a stem? You don't? Every single person I know was born connected to a stem. Aren't they? Is it true? Are they connected to a stem or not? Ravindra? Yes? So if everybody you know is connected to a stem, how is it so hard to believe that Lord Brahma could be connected to one? If you'd never seen such a thing, it's like you hadn't seen a cell phone, you may not believe in it. But all creatures are connected by the umbilical cord. So why is it so hard to think that Brahma couldn't be connected? So this was imparted into the heart of Brahma. So that Krishna says it was imparted into disciplic succession. The saintly kings understood it in this way. But in the course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. And that's why we keep Prabhupada's teachings in order, so that if the succession is broken, the science is not lost. We find this is the trouble with other scriptures. Like in the Bible, it says that Jesus gave the people meat. And it's funny. Rick Perry, the governor of Texas, said, if English was good enough for Jesus, it should be good enough for the Mexicans. You agree with that statement? The Bible's in English, and they have verses in English, yes? So that means Jesus spoke in English? No, but how did the Bible get into English? How? What? Translation. Now with us, we give the translation in Sanskrit first and then give it in English. So if I says, Krishna says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhakta Prayachati. Krishna says to offer me meat, fish, and eggs. Could you object to that? Which verse is meat? Patram Pushpam or Toyam? No, one is a leaf, one is a flower, one is food, one is water. But if I didn't give you the original and I just translated it, you would say, it says right here, Krishna says to give them meat, fish, and eggs. So Bible was that way. They say that in there that Jesus gave the people meat. But in the Greek, it said Jesus gave the people bromide. Ask a big Greek person. Bromide means food. Does food mean meat? If you said we're serving food in the marquee, does that mean meat? Sometimes? No, it never means that, because we don't consider meat to be food. So that is how we keep the tradition alive. We keep the Sanskrit alive, and we keep it the way the spiritual master has given to us, because in the course of time, when the succession is broken, the science as it is appears to be lost. So then Krishna says, this very ancient science of the Supreme is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend. Then Arjuna is perplexed. He says, how am I to understand that you instructed this to Vivishvan? Vivishvan's senior by birth to you. Then Krishna explains why his knowledge is different. He says, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O killer of the enemies. Then he says, although I am unborn and my transcendental body never deteriorates, and although I am the Lord of all sentient beings, I still appear in every millennium in my original transcendental form. I manifest myself as I am. And then Krishna says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata bhutanama dharmasya tadatmadami shijami aham. Whenever there is a rise of irreligion and a predominance of irreligious practice, at that time I descend myself. And then in the 8th verse, he says, Paritranaya sadhunam vinasaya traduskritam dharma samstha panarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. In order to deliver the pious and annihilate the miscreants, I advent myself millennium after millennium. So then, backed up by here that Krishna has imparted this knowledge originally, he's imparting it again, and he's keeping the succession in order, and he remembers all of it that we cannot. He manifests himself as he is, and he gets to pick when he's born. I remember reading in an astrology book that it said, according to astrology, an Indian saint named Chaitanya would have to be the greatest person ever born. So I thought, someday I have to find out who this Chaitanya is. So I Googled it. This is sometime in the 60s. There was no Google. So it's not possible to Google something, right? Because you couldn't do it then. You probably could on another planet, but you couldn't do it in Laguna Beach. So how is it by chance that Krishna came as Lord Chaitanya and came at a time that would be the most auspicious time possible? How did such a chance happen? Can you explain how such a chance happened? How did such a chance happen? It wasn't a chance. Krishna arranged it that way, right? Isn't it correct? He arranged to take his birth at the time where he would have the most potency. So when we get that then that's why we know that one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, that Krishna is talking about how he is a supreme knower of everything and how he is there to take care of everyone. And because of that, we're fearless, because we know that Krishna will take us back to him. I had a good dream with that, as I'm dreaming that Prabhupada is talking with some sannyasis. Then all of a sudden he looks up, he says, just a minute. He comes over to me and he says, don't worry, I'm always in your mind. And he touches my heart and says, I'm always in your heart. Then he grabs my hand and says, don't worry. He says, I'm always there for you. And when you die, I will come to get you to be with me and Krishna in the spiritual world. So was that sort of a assuring dream, or really assuring? Right? It's like someone says, don't worry, I put 100 billion rand in your account. Would you say, oh, that mildly assures me? Would that mildly assure you? No, it would really assure you, right? Who here would feel better financially with an extra 100 billion in your bank account, rand? Did anybody feel like that things were going well? Yes? You'd feel like Elon, right? And he never gets frustrated, right? But he does. So, when Krishna has assured us of how he's taking care of us, then we're not afraid. When it talks about the qualities of a devotee, the first one is fearlessness. That's why Prabhupada could come to America, not knowing if he was going to turn left or right. When we came to South Africa, we were already refused a visa from South Africa, a religious visa, so we sent our passports to London to get a tourist visa. And we came in with a suit and a hat, and they allowed us in the country until they figured out what we were doing. Then we were told we had to leave. So I left the country and never came back. No, I left and went to Mozambique and camped back in. But then I was left alone here, so I couldn't leave then, because all the books would be here if they didn't allow me back. So I had to stay here illegally. And first the thieves had guns at my head, and then the government threatened to throw me out the 13-story window at the John Forster Square. They said, you think you can fly? If we throw you out the window, you'll be able to fly. Now with people like that, if they threw me out the window and I hit the ground, whose fault is it? Obviously it's my fault, because I should have been able to fly. The fact that I hit the ground is my fault, because if I had flown away, I wouldn't hit the ground. So I can't blame it on them. The special police here were pretty much like the Gestapo in Nazi Germany. I was in South Africa in 1973, but I felt like I was in Nazi Germany in 1943. They even had the hats just like the Gestapo had. And they'd speak the Afrikaans to where it sounded like Hitler saying, Der Russen Heimatuntermenschen, which meant the subhuman Russians. But yet we knew that if they threw me out the window and I hit the ground, or if the thieves had shot me, I was thinking, he doesn't have to be a good aim, the gunner's right at my head. If they're across the room, if Jai Sachinandan pulls a gun at me, well, maybe he can't hit me from there. But if the gun's at my head, he can hit me from there, right? So, but we're fearless, because we know if we die in Krishna's service, we're okay. That's why the sage came along and he saw the prince who was living nicely. As you live forever, right? Because when he dies, he's going to have to pay for the exploiting of other people. He sees the butcher, he says, don't live, don't die. Because as long as he's living, he's going to create more sins by killing animals. And when he dies, he's going to suffer even worse. So how do you do that? Not live and not die. You're in trouble, right? Then he told the brahmachari, you die immediately. Because he's doing such austerities that it's difficult, but if he dies, he'll go back to Godhead. Tells a devotee, you can live or you can die. So if we're taken care of by Krishna, we don't need to worry about anything. He is predestined to go back to Godhead. He says here, a pure devotee will never be vanquished in any circumstances. So we think about it. If we have Krishna's protection, we have everything. We read a couple days ago the peace formula, which is based, they printed that out sometime in the 60s to go to the peace march, anti-war march in Washington, D.C. because they were in Vietnam killing thousands of people there, and the American government said that we have to stop North Vietnam from attacking South Vietnam or they'll take over all of Southeast Asia, including Australia. And then they said, but don't worry, they'll be easy to defeat. Both things couldn't be true. If they're easy to defeat, they can't take all those countries. If they can take all those countries, they won't be easy to defeat. Turned out neither one was true. But we know at least both couldn't be true, right? Turned out neither one was true. So we didn't see a good reason to kill innocent people from that circumstance. So the peace formula was that you feel peace if you remember God in 3 ways. Madhurya is not allowed to compete in this contest because she got all 3 the last time. So someone else will have to say it. No fair texting her for answers either. I don't think she'll text back right now because she's busy swimming in the ocean of love of Radha and Krishna. And she said she's a good swimmer, so she should do well at that, right? Yes? So, the peace formula is that you remember Krishna in 3 ways, and you don't have Krishna in 3 ways if you forget these. What are they? Someone know one of them? 3 ways. No one? We talked about this on Wednesday, which I think was 2 days ago, right? Did we have Wednesday 2 days ago? And we talked about the peace formula. That you have peace when you remember Krishna in 3 ways. What does something Krishna do with the planets that we can't do? What? Control? You can't control the planets? Would you like to try? Please don't. The sun now is 150 million kilometers away from Earth. If it somehow went to 200 million kilometers away from Earth, or only 100, which one of those is a problem? Which one? Who says neither? Who says if it went from 150 million to 200? Is that a problem? How about if it only went to 100? Both are a problem, right? So it seems to be, because here it fluctuates. If it goes to 10 degrees, people think it's cold. It goes to 30, they think it's hot. We're talking only a fluctuation of 20 degrees, and you think one is cold and one is hot. Now what if we fluctuate 40 degrees? What if it goes down to 0 from today? What if it goes down to 0 or it goes up to 40? Is one of those cold and one of those is hot? How about if it goes to 20 below or to 60? Is one of those cold and one of those hot? The middle of Australia, it goes from 0 to 50 all in the same day. That's the part of Australia nobody. Because 0's cold and 50's hot, but all in the same day. So If we forgot Krishna as the supreme controller, we don't have peace. If we remember it, we have peace. If we feel lonely, we feel despondent. But if we remember Krishna is our supreme friend, then we feel peace, because our friend will take care of us. And the thing that we struggle with is that, like the one man said, God, I'm just a simple man. I really only need 4 things in life. Said, older whiskey, younger women, faster cars, and more money. Does that make someone a simple man? Older whiskey, younger women, faster cars, and more money. But the third part of the peace formula he forgot. What is that? That God is a supreme enjoyer. If you're thinking that God is a supreme enjoyer, do you ask him for older whiskey, younger women, faster cars, and more money? Please, God, send me these things. Faster cars, right? Because if God is a supreme enjoyer, we just ask for some way to serve God. We don't ask him for a bunch of favors. Bhakti means we just ask for some way to serve. We don't ask them. We don't say, well, what's ever left over? You don't make a meal and then you eat. And then what's left over you offer to Krishna. The one girl was from Australia, and she said her Hindu boyfriend said that, don't eat that food, you have to offer it to God first. So she says, oh, here, I'll offer the second half of my beer. She said he was upset. I says, well, number 1, they don't offer beer to God. And number 2, you don't offer what's left over that you left. So that's not an offering, right? We offer something first to God. The man went to the deity of Balaji in Tirupati. Tell me if this is bhakti. He says, okay, God, I'll make you a deal. If I can win the R1,000,000 lottery, I will give you 500,000 rand. That sounds like 50% surrendered, right? You're just asking God to give you 1,000,000, and then out of your good graces, you'll give God 500,000, right? Is that good? I'll try that. You give me 1,000,000 rand, and out of my good graces, I'll give you 500,000 rand. And you should tell everyone how grateful you are that I gave you 500,000 rand, right? Did you come out 500,000 rand ahead? No, you came out 500,000 behind, because I asked you to give me 1,000,000 rand. So he's asked God that if you give me the 1,000,000 rand, I'll give you half, 500,000 rand. So he plays this lottery, and he wins 500,000 rand. And it goes back to the deity and says, my dear Lord, he says, I very much appreciate that you helped me win this lottery, but I only have one doubt. Why did you take your half out first? So this isn't the way we think. We offer to Krishna, and we take what is left. Because we understand that if God is all-powerful, he's going to take care of us. Here's the next riddle for you. If you get any one of these 3, you can get all of them. What is there? There's something that God can't do. It's what poor people have, and it's what rich people need. Who can tell me what that is? It's something God can't do. It's what the people in the street have, and what rich people need. Who can tell me what that is? What? Nothing. How could it be nothing? What do poor people have? What do they have? Nothing, right? What do the rich people need? Nothing. What is their God can't do? Nothing. Think about it. They have something that God can't do. Nothing. So that's something we're secure when we know that we're being taken care of by the Supreme Controller. Prahlad Maharaj was going to be killed by his own father. So when Lord Nrsingadev appeared, was he afraid anymore? Some people believe God can only appear in one form. Now, if God appears as Lord Nrsingadev, who wants to volunteer to tell him he's not allowed to appear in that form? Any volunteers? Anybody feel like they should go up to Lord Nrsingadev? You can't appear as a half lion, half man avatar. Anybody want to tell him that? You sure? You want to show how bold you are? No? But people think this way. We're going to tell God what he can and can't do. But that may not be a good idea. Our conception of God is very limited that way. Feels like God doesn't exist because he didn't tell me what to do. If you say, I told yesterday that I want Cyril Ramaphosa to show up at the temple today at 8:25 with Elon Musk and Donald Trump. They're not here, therefore none of them exist. Is that a correct assumption? Or did I not inform them and they don't have to show up when I tell them to? Is that it? I can't assume that because they didn't show up, they don't exist. People think that. Well, I asked God to do this and that for me. Sometimes God gives them a sign. Shaimashundra didn't like to ask George Harrison for anything. And Prabhupada says, when you go to see him, I want you to ask him for 19,000 pounds to print the Krishna book. That's a lot of rand, isn't it? How many pounds, how many rand would 19,000 pounds be? About 190,000 rand? No, more than that, like 3 times that, 4 times, right? How many rand in a pound? What's that, 4 times? Almost 4 times. So we're talking like almost 80,000 rand. Oh, okay, almost 400,000. Is that a lot of money? Okay. So George Harrison says, that's a lot of money, especially we're talking in the 60s, before 1970. That book came out in 1970. He says, that's a lot of money. He says, I wouldn't be able to do something like that unless I got some kind of a sign from God that that was the right thing to do. And at that minute, a lightning bolt hit the house, all the electric went out, and the whole house shook. And when it stopped shaking, there was no electricity. And George Harrison sat there for a minute looking at Shaimashundra without saying a word. And then he says, I guess that's my sign, isn't it? So sometimes we have to look to Scripture and ask others as to what Krishna wants us to do. And sometimes he gives us a very clear sign. So we're given that very clear sign. We should neglect it. We should take that. And we should try to understand that when we have Krishna, we have everything, even if we have nothing. And if we don't have Krishna, when we die, we can still only take 25% with us. Is that true? Like Elon Musk owns the SpaceX and the X company that used to be Twitter. When he dies, is he going to take those with him? You sure? Even if he really, really, really wants to? Doesn't that change it? Don't you get your way if you really, really, really want it bad? And can't you change people if you really, really want them changed? No, they have to want to change. And Krishna gets his way no matter what we think. So that's the peace for me. He's a supreme controller. He's a supreme joyer. We offer it to him. And he's our supreme friend. He'll take care of us. So are there any questions, additions, subtractions, complaints? Yes? Here we have a complaint over there. Yes?
Hare Krishna.
Yes?
I'd like to attempt to answer the question you asked earlier, and my Christian background would attempt to do so. So you asked what God can do, what poor people can do, and what rich people can't do.
No, what poor people have,
Okay.
poor people have it.
Yes.
It's what rich people need, and it's what God can't do.
Yes. So, according to my teachings, I would say that God cannot. We were taught that God cannot worship Himself, cannot praise Himself.
That's
needs.
not true. Krishna wakes up and meditates on himself. He can meditate on himself. He can worship himself.
Okay.
Krishna and Balaram go and do the artik for Narayan, who's another form of God. How can we say it's not possible? So many people come up with things that God can't do, but that's their idea of what God can and can't do.
Well, you've nullified my. I won't continue now because you've sort of answered. Because I was going to say that what poor people have is worship. They need God more than rich people. So I was going to say that rich people don't have what poor people have, which is worship.
That may be true, but it's a riddle to show you. What do they have? They don't need. It's what they think they need. They may need a lot, but it's what rich people think they need. They don't think they need anything. And the poor people feel like they have nothing.
And it feels as if the poor people are more...
Where do they teach that God can't worship himself?
At a Christian church I used to attend.
Which one is that?
It's called Vision Center.
Oh. I think something's lost in translation. Because that's the problem there. They translate things. Things are not translated correctly. The different groups took out parts of the Bible they don't like the parts that have reincarnation and that have different things. And so some of it's missing. But why can't God worship himself if he wants to? That's, they say God can't be a coward boy and God too. God can't be male and female. But anything we can do, God can do better. They say we can worship God, but God can't worship himself. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna coming as a devotee. That's the whole point. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna coming as his own devotee to show us how to practice love of God. The contradiction to that is most Christians say that Jesus is God and Jesus is worshiping God. So there's a contradiction. You can't say that God can't worship himself, but Jesus is God and he's worshiping himself. Both things cannot be true. Then we have to conclude that either Jesus is not God or that God can worship himself. Because Jesus does worship God, and they say Jesus is God. So that concept has not been looked into enough to see that. Is that not true? Don't they say Jesus is God? Yes? Give him back the microphone. Where is it? Don't they say Jesus is God?
Yes, we say he's Lord, he's God, yes.
Yes, and he worships God. So that shows that there's if he's God and he's worshiping God, then according to that, God can worship himself. You can't say that Jesus is God and he's worshiping himself, and at the same time say God can't worship himself. One of those concepts has to be untrue.
But then again, Jesus is the Son. Isn't he obeying his Father by worshiping him?
No, but then you can't say that God can't worship himself and say Jesus is God. One of those concepts has to be untrue then. That becomes a contradiction. Just like they think God can't be a coward boy. People come up with so many things God can't do. And that's what is it God can't do? Nothing. You can make a list of things God can't do, and that'll be wrong. But he can make a list of things. Just like there was the joke. It says, God is dead. Below it, it's written Nietzsche. The next one said, Nietzsche's dead. God. So we can't artificially place limitations on God. But God's already placed limitations on us. That's why he's considered inconceivable. And God can worship himself. And according to that, if Jesus is God and he's worshiping himself, then that you can't say that God can't worship himself. Those are contradictory terms. Somehow something is missing there. That's why we keep this knowledge intact, because it's very easy for something to be lost over time as to what the original meaning was. Especially when Jesus didn't speak in English, they can mistranslate certain things. And now you can get some of those. It's like some of those, especially Protestant tradition, took out some of the things that the Catholics have because they said that it wasn't there in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Later on, it was discovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls, but they never put it back in. They took out the Assyrian Gospels. They took out the Gospel of Jubilees. They took out many Gospels from there, so many things may be missing. And that's why we try to keep the teachings intact, because if we're not careful, things can become missing. But Jesus does mention, hallowed be thy name, and that's why we chant the names of God. He says, hallowed be thy name. Isn't that the start of the Lord's Prayer? Hallowed be thy name, and that's why we chant the name of God. And we find the name of Christ means anointed one. It's very close to the name of Krishna. So in this age, the main thing we do is chant the holy names of God, because many of these things may be inconceivable to us. People think, well, everybody they know was created by somebody, so who created God? This is beyond our ability to conceive. Because God is eternal. We don't see anybody that's eternal. Everybody has a date they were born and a date they died. So many of these things are inconceivable. All right, shall we end there? The other thing, God won't force us, but if we turn towards him, then he gives the knowledge that we come to him. All right, Hare Krishna.